Hello. Hey, everybody out there. I'm Darcy. I'm the creator of the Vibrant Woman program. This is take two. Thanks for bearing with me while Facebook, all the moving parts are moving the way they're supposed to now. So welcome. Hey. I'm here to do my first ever live Wednesday Q&A session because I get a lot of questions from clients and friends and followers in emails and DMs about health and fitness and hormone balance and all of these things that I teach in my program and that I post content about these days. And it occurred to me like everyone would benefit from hearing these answers that I'm sharing with folks one-on-one. So let's do this. Welcome. While we're waiting to see if a few folks are going to be able to join us live today, I've heard from some of you who can't, and that's fine. Let me just give you a little background here. A couple of things. First of all, this is going to be a weekly event, live Wednesday Q&As here on this page. So what I want you to do is go ahead and click like or follow this page so you'll make sure you get notifications of when I'm live and what's happening over here. So that's the first thing. Number two, I will be putting in the comments the link to my website, okay? You can also get there by my page. I want you to go over to my website and just take a look around. Some of the things we're going to be talking about today, I actually have mini packages there that are a great opportunity for you just to take a little bite-sized piece of my health and fitness advice, of my wisdom. I've got a lot of wisdom to share with you. And there's a great page there that will help you sort of decide where you might want to start, because that's a question I get all the time. Where should I start? And so I'm going to direct you over to my website and take a look around. There's also a link there where you can set up your own free discovery call with me one-on-one. It's absolutely free. There's no obligation. I'm not just going to sell you something. We're going to talk and see if the questions you have and the issues you're having are a good fit for the program that I teach, and if it would be a good idea for us to work together. And we'll know more when we talk in person. So I'm always inviting folks to do that. It's great to meet with people one-on-one, face-to-face on Zoom, and see how we can help each other, work together. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to let you know, and hi to the folks coming on. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you're here. You know what? Let's just get started. Oh, here it is. The Q&As. Absolutely, type them into the comments. If you're here and you have a question, or if something I'm talking about sparks a question in you, I want you to go ahead and type it in the comments. And I'm going to do my very best to get to all of those questions in each session. The best way to make sure your question would be answered in our live segment is to submit it in advance through an email. And that's the other thing that's on my website. When you go to the contact page, there's a link to my email, and you can just say, hey, Darcy, here's what I'm wondering about. So I'm going to answer the questions I got through email first. And then if there's time left, I'm absolutely going to take questions from you live watchers. And let's just jump in and get started. I want to tell you a very brief history to why I'm doing this. The reason I'm doing this, and what you're going to hear a lot in these answers, are the years of experience that I have using these methods. I'm a math method certified health coach, and I'm actually one of the founding members. When Phil Maffetone, who was my coach and mentor and teacher, when he's been working since, I want to say, the 70s. He's been at this for decades, talking about things like nutrition, but from a lens that's it's still pretty marginalized. This idea that we have a carbohydrate tolerance, that sugar is wrecking everything, that it's our modern lifestyle habits and eating patterns that are actually causing disease. And so we're in this very unique situation where, as modern humans, we are looking to modern medical science to solve the problems that our modern lifestyles are actually causing. And so we're in a really funny place. You're going to hear me all the time refer us back to root causes, root causes, root causes. If we can find what's causing the problem, we can actually eliminate the problem. So that's where we're coming from. I learned all of this and so much more from my friend and mentor, Dr. Phil Maffetone. He works with everything. Well, he doesn't anymore. He worked with couch potatoes to elite world-class athletes using these very same methods to help people achieve better health in their body. And I hope you'll hang around for a while longer. You'll hear more about my work with Phil and why these paradigm shifting principles are so important and so powerful for actually transforming the way your body works. Okay, so just want to start with that premise. I worked with Phil for a long time. He helped me understand how all of this is related to the brain, to brain function. For those of you who don't know my story, my daughter was brain injured at 12 days old, and I spent the better part of a couple decades rehabilitating her brain so that she could outgrow her disabilities, not just learn to live with them. So that's another story you can read more in depth on my blog. We don't have time for all that today, unless it comes up in the questions. I'm always very transparent about that. But I think without any further ado, we should jump in. So I got all these questions emailed to me, and I'm going to start right at the top of the list. Okay, Darcy, I heard about low carb diets and want to try it. I started and wanted to try it. I started stopping the bread, pasta, rice, cookies, and sugars, but I still eat some fruits and breakfast oatmeal because these are easy breakfasts when I need to go to the office. The positive points until now, my weight is going down, I'm feeling better in my intestines, no cravings for sugar or chocolate, etc. When I'm hungry, I eat nuts, eggs, a piece of fruit, or I drink water or coffee. I feel okay, but when it's time to do my sports, like running or biking, I don't have very much energy or speed. I can't speed like before. Is this okay? Maybe a comfortable energy transition needs more time. Okay, excellent question. I love this question. All right, so listen up for a minute. When we're talking about going to a low carb diet, and maybe you have heard of this, everybody knows the history of this. Atkins came out with it. There's the whole paleo movement, there's keto now. All of these have low carb as a premise. And here's what I want you to understand. Low carb is not a fad, although some people will sell products or services even with that labeling to hook you in. It can be used as a fad. Here's what you need to understand. Human beings evolved on a fairly low carbohydrate diet, and depending on your specific genetics, your specific family history, and your specific lived life experience, all of those things are going to add up to give you your personal carbohydrate tolerance. Now, again, my mentor, Dr. Maffetone, has been talking about carbohydrate intolerance for several decades. Here's what's really important for those of us who have heard about low carb and seen the great results, tried it ourselves, and had mixed results. The whole point of a low carbohydrate diet is not to hit some numbers prescribed by somebody else out there. The whole point of it, and I do it, I teach it as a 2-week test, same as Phil does. The whole point of this is to remove the refined carbohydrates, as this person has done. Notice he stopped with the bread, the pasta, the rice, the cookies, anything with sugar, or anything that immediately turns to sugar in your bloodstream. Okay, those are all the refined flour foods. Things like pretzels and chips, all of that, bagels, crackers, those things are so refined and so carbohydrate dense. As soon as you digest them, they turn to glucose in your bloodstream, just like that. Now, the whole point of a low carb diet is to remove all of that processed stuff to make sure that your body's metabolism has the opportunity to reset. And that reset needs to be back to the original human metabolism, which is a fat burning metabolism. Okay, so it's our modern eating habits and our modern lifestyles that have taken human beings away from their natural fat burning metabolism into a sugar burning metabolism. So we're sugar dependent. There's lots of ways to say it. Carb addicted, sugar addicted. I don't care how you say it. The point is, you cannot thrive on that kind of a diet because your brain is 65% fat or more. When we have lots of glucose circulating in our bloodstream, so when we have these high carb diets, what's happening is the insulin comes out to take the glucose and deliver it into a cell. We've been doing this too long, combined with our genetic background. If we've already got diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease, if we've already got metabolic disease in our family history, then we are primed and way more likely to have this kind of response. We're insulin resistant. In other words, those cells have said enough already. It's too much. We cannot let all that insulin into the cell, which means the glucose can't get into the cell, which means the cell is not getting its energy. Then what happens is you're going to be deprived of that energy, this is where the lethargy, the brain fog, this is where this person's problem is coming in. He no longer has his energy and he no longer has his speed for sport because he's got a sugar dependent metabolism and he's just pulled away most of the sugars. So I can hear some of you already saying like, okay, Darcy, well, doesn't that prove it? Like, I need carbs, I need sugar. No, you don't. You just have not rehabilitated your metabolism yet. So what I'm going to recommend for this person and for anybody who's tried this low carb thing before, if you're in a similar position, you've tried low carb and you didn't feel better. It's normal to not feel better within the first few days because your body is struggling to make this transition. It's going to go looking for sugar any other place it can get it. It's going to take it out of the glycogen out of your liver, and then it's going to take it out of the glycogen out of your cells. And then when all of that's gone and the water that goes with it, you're going to slim down and begin to look like you've lost weight. You've lost bloat for sure. Then what happens is the cells are going to do something really important. They're going to look around and say, well, shoot, there's no more sugar left here to burn. We're going to have to think of something else. And then they're going to remember, oh yeah, we've evolved to burn fat. Oh yeah, that program is still in here. Let's just do that. Let's just burn fat. This is when the metabolism begins to switch gears. Okay? It can happen within a few days for some people. For some of us, it can take a couple of weeks for this to fully happen. Once this happens, everything's going to begin to resolve because it was the sugar burning metabolism that was causing the problems. So when your cells begin to burn fat, a lot of things will clear up, including your sleep, some hormone balance, any of that brain fog, lethargy stuff, your physical performance. But here's the interesting thing. This person did not stop all their carbs. Notice he said, I still eat fruits and oatmeal for breakfast. Now, those are not refined carbs. They're very natural. Those are whole foods, but they are still carbohydrate dense foods. And there's just enough carb there to prevent the cells from having to shift into fat burning. Okay? So that's the mistake that people make, is that they think, oh, I know I can't eat potato chips and waffles anymore. I know I can't have a cookie. I'll just replace that with strawberries. If you sit and eat strawberries, even one, and for many of us, it's not one, it's a bowl full, then we're still getting natural carbs and our cells don't have to shift gears. So we stay stuck with a sugar burning metabolism and just lower levels of sugar to run it on. And that's where the energy is feeling lost. That's where cravings can still exist. And so we have trouble. And then, unfortunately, a lot of people will say, well, I tried low carb and it didn't work for me. And it's because we didn't actually do it all the way. You did not deprive yourself of enough carbs. So I hope that helps some folks out there. I actually get this question in lots of different forms, and I thought this one was a good example. So again, if you have other questions, type them in or come find me after you watch this session. And yeah, let's see if we can get you hooked up with a low carb trial that will actually help you get to the root of your problem, okay? All right, next question. Okay, so I did the 2-week carb challenge, which is low carbs, and of course, we're going to replace those calories with vegetables, the non-starchy ones, and protein and fats. And this person says, but I worry, all of those eggs, fats, nuts, and cheese that I'm eating, is there a danger for my blood cholesterol? I love this question. What you really need to know, again, in a short Q&A session live on Facebook, I'm not going to have time to go down the rabbit hole of all the science that explains why this is true. I'm going to invite you to do that research yourself or ask me for a starting point. Here's what I want you to understand. We have to eat fat. We have to eat healthy fat, and we have to eat enough of it. Your brain is over 65% fat. We, as human beings, as a species, evolved eating high fat. We need to make sure we're eating the right high fats, okay? So they have to be real fats. So these things are good. Eggs, nuts, cheese. These things are all just fine. Where we get into trouble with our cholesterol is not fats alone. It's where fats coexist with high carbs, particularly sugar-laden carbs. That's where we have trouble and we create our cholesterol problem, okay? So I want you to understand it is not fat or eating cholesterol that causes high cholesterol in your body. It's actually eating sugar. All right, so that is something to know. That's a little bit of unlearning for some of us. Eggs will not drive up your cholesterol unless you're also eating a diet high in processed refined sugar and carbohydrates. Okay, that's really important to understand. The fats that you need to run your brain and your body energy on are going to be whole foods still. So I want you to stay away from things like margarine. I want you to stay away from the poly-6 fats. These are all the ones that are really unstable and they're too abundant in our diets, especially if we have grown up on processed foods. All the boxes and bags are full of things like safflower, sunflower, soybean oil. We need to cut all of those out. Canola, we need to cut all of those out. So I want you to eat whole fats. I want you to eat the fat that's in the healthy pastured meat that you're sourcing. And if you need help finding that, I want you to look me up. We're going to talk more about that as we go forward. Definitely dairy works for those of us that tolerate dairy. Some of us do not. I don't tolerate dairy, so I have to skip the cheese most of the time. Eggs are one of the most perfect foods on the planet if you're not sensitive to them. And yeah, so make sure you're getting healthy fats. Other good sources of healthy fats, avocados, olives, and nuts. Yeah, so don't worry about the fats that you're doing during the 2-week test because you're removing the sugar and carb component that comes into play that is going to cause the cholesterol. And cholesterol, your overall cholesterol number, more about going forward, okay? All right, good. Next question, is a vegetarian diet healthier? And I love this question because I get it in a lot of different forms from time to time. So let's talk about vegetarian diets. I am a meat eater. There is a lot of really good science that's showing us why eating meat, particularly from pasture-raised animals on regenerative farms, is a really important part of human health. It has always been an important part of human health. It's only in the modern era where we have factory farmed animals eating toxic foods in toxic environments in inhumane conditions, sent to being processed in ways that are not acceptable to their health, honoring their life, or honoring our health and our life. So eating meat in and of itself is not bad. Eating meat from these terrible factory farms is bad for everyone in the planet. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. So I just want to put that in there. If you can learn more about regenerative agriculture and the importance of animal husbandry, both for climate change and for human health, I invite you to do that. Is a vegetarian diet healthier? Well, now that we've busted the myth that meat is bad, meat is not bad. Certain meats are bad for sure. Pasture-raised regenerative meat is not bad. So in that case, a vegetarian diet is not necessarily healthier. That doesn't mean that you can't be healthy as a vegetarian so long as you're getting enough protein. And you're going to need to make sure that you combine your plant proteins to make sure you're getting all of the amino acids. There's an entire alphabet of them. If you don't get the entire alphabet, then you are certainly missing out on important building blocks for things like your neurotransmitters, for your hormones. So you need to make sure you're combining them properly. If you are a vegetarian but not a vegan, if you're open to eating certain animal products, you can definitely get all of your amino acids from any animal product. So whether that's your heavy cream, your cheese, your eggs, if you don't eat meat but you're open to eating fish and seafood, then certainly any living creature has all of the amino acids present. So it's just important that we make sure we're covering all of our bases there, okay? And I want to say one more caveat about this vegetarian question. Whether you're vegetarian or not, it's really important that we only eat real whole foods. And those are foods that come from the earth. So if you're vegetarian, and I'm not trying to pick on vegetarians, I promise, but here's what I see. I see a lot of people wanting to avoid meat for very important reasons, moral and ethical reasons, and then they're eating tofurkey, whatever that is. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with eating tofu. If you tolerate soy, there are plenty of good plant-based proteins. But in my meat section at my grocery store, there's a whole row now of fake meat. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. I don't want you to eat fake anything. I only want you to eat real food. Many reasons. Those fake meat products often have more chemicals in them. They are processed to such a degree that the body doesn't even know what to make of it. And they're not whole, they're not representing the entire amino acid alphabet. Lots of reasons to avoid fake meat. If you can't eat meat or you decide not to, then don't. Then eat other whole foods. Here's the other thing that happens. We tend to replace things like meat or eggs or fish with other processed foods in boxes and bags. There tend to be a lot of snack foods in vegetarian diets. I don't want you to carb up. There tend to be too many carbs and too many processed carbs. And those actually are far worse for you than the meat products if you're eating real meat. So please, whatever your values are, eat within your values, but just make sure that you're eating real food products. So these are vegetables that grow. I'm pointing, my garden is right over here. I want you to eat things that grow out of the dirt, healthy dirt, and I want you to eat real animal products. So this goes for non-vegetarians too. Thinking that we can open a package of hot dogs, not a good idea. Order a pizza, not a good idea. I know what I'm saying is unpopular. It just happens to be the truth, okay? So if you want to be a vegetarian, that's great. Please find out how to make sure you're getting enough protein. Please make sure you're not replacing your meat with other unhealthy processed junk foods, okay? Hope that helps. Next question, we've got a couple more. I'm going to try to get through this before our time's up. Okay, Darcy, I've heard that blueberries are good for memory. Are there other foods I should also take if I'm concerned about my aging? And then this person also says, she says, I have elderly relatives with dementia, and that worries me. Right, because there can be a genetic predisposition for dementia, right? So if we know it's running in our family, we want to do the best we can to avoid that. Here's the other thing I want you to understand. These, what we call aging neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia are also known as type 3 diabetes. So the link to these brain diseases, these problems with the brain being able to function optimally throughout the entire lifespan, is scientifically linked to high carbohydrate sugar diets, type 3 diabetes. So the exact same diet and lifestyle that cause diabetes in some people, right, which is linked to obesity and heart disease, we know what that looks like. Alzheimer's and dementia, the neurodegenerative diseases are simply invisible until they're not. Same root cause, okay? So let's talk about that. What can we do about it? Really the same thing that we can do for the metabolic diseases like diabetes. We have to know our personal carbohydrate tolerance, and we have to eat underneath it. If you hear me say that once, you're going to hear me say that 1,000 times because it's the truth. Okay, this idea that blueberries is good for memory. This is another thing that I want to point out. I hear this a lot. It's, you just can't go anywhere these days. Turn on a TV news show, walk past a billboard, go into a drugstore or grocery store without hearing about what foods cause something and what foods cure something. Now, I'm all about real food is your pharmacy, right? Real food is the way to go. Real food cures disease. And that's largely because it's fake food that causes those diseases. But I want to warn us away from this really the old paradigm of thinking small scale cause and effect. In other words, thinking about it symptomatically, as if the poor memory is the problem, and then looking for a pill to take to solve that problem. Whether that pill is something made by Big Pharma or that pill is a blueberry, there is still a very similar level of consciousness thinking about this here. I want to take this one thing to cure the symptom. Let's think about, what does a memory problem mean? A memory problem means that the neurons in your brain are not connecting the way they should, the way they used to. It means there's not enough fat for the axons to be well myelinated to shoot messages from neuron to neuron. It means certain connections or networks of neurons have begun to deteriorate. Okay, so there's not the proper neurotransmitters, which are based on protein in your diet, or the proper electrical firing, which is based on the fat in your diet. So what I really want to do, instead of thinking about this in terms of symptom and pill, even if that pill is a blueberry, yes, blueberries contain some wonderful phytonutrients that, yes, will contribute to your brain health. But you can't just say, oh, I've started to lose my memory, so I'm going to sit and eat a tub of blueberries every day. And here's why. Because it's not that simple, okay? Plus, blueberries, honestly, as healthy as they are, as beautiful as they are for your body, it has to be within your carbohydrate tolerance. Blueberries are carbohydrate food. They're a fruit. They're full of sugar. It's not all they're full of, but I have to be careful. My carbohydrate tolerance does not include much fruit, not even the berries. I do have some berries weekly. I don't have them daily. Okay? So, and I'm not saying that you're going to be exactly like me, but I am saying let's try to really get out of this trap of thinking about just take a pill to fix a symptom. So the blueberry is like a pill for that symptom of the memory. Let's think new paradigm. Let's look for root causes. If the brain is beginning to deteriorate, let's ask ourselves why. What does the brain need that it's not getting? And maybe it is the phytonutrients in blueberries, but I guarantee you it's the healthy fats. I guarantee you it's adequate quality protein. Okay, so that's what I want to say about that question. All right. These are good. Next one. I think we have one last question, and then if there's any live ones, we'll get to those too. All right, last question. Darcy, I wanted to try keto, but I worried that I would miss my sweet treats too much and give in to my old habits. Then I saw keto cookies at my grocery store, so I think I'll be okay to do this, right? Is there a limit to these as part of a keto diet? Okay, buckle up. Here's the answer to keto cookies. No, don't eat them. Sorry, that's not the answer you wanted to hear. I've recently been talking about this more. I think I did a video last week. Recently, I've done another video talking about a client that had a very similar question. And here's the truth. Keto means fat, okay? And when we do a keto diet, what we're doing is we are getting into an advanced state of fat burning. In other words, we have not just gone low carb and invited the cells away from sugar burning into fat burning. We've taken it even a step farther, and we have created a consistent fat burning metabolism. We're fat adapted, some people like to say, or keto adapted. And what that means is that the body is going to, the way we measure it, you can measure it with your blood, you can measure it with urine. That's not as accurate. It's okay. We can talk, if you're interested in keto, absolutely go set up a discovery call, and we will talk more about this specifically for you, because I am usually keto, meaning I follow a modified ketogenic diet, and I always have blood ketones available for my body to burn. It has taken years to perfect that, to make sure I'm getting it right for my body. There are bumps we hit on this road to deep fat burning and a total fat metabolism, because even when you're doing low carb and I say you switch to fat, it's not 100%. It means we're burning more fat than sugar, but it's never 100%. And so the longer you do keto, the deeper you do keto, there are metabolic changes that happen. Most of them are very beneficial for most of us, but we need to fine tune this just a little bit more. And so what I'm concerned about is I see companies who want a piece, they've lost their profits because there are fewer people buying Oreos. I'm not buying Oreos anymore the way I used to buy Oreos. They've lost a piece of the market. They want it back, so they've re-engineered some of these foods. Yes, it's true it might have a 0 carb count, but it's sweetened somehow, or they wouldn't be able to sell it. You wouldn't want it. The whole thing is we want the benefits of these diets, the low carb, keto. We hear all the good stuff about them. We want that. We just don't want to do what it takes to get there. We don't want to give up our addiction to our sweet taste. So this is something I really advise people to get some support before you try to go all in with keto. So no, the keto packages, the keto cookies, the keto waffles, the keto brownies and cakes, I do not recommend them. Mostly because there is something called the cephalic phase of digestion where they've sweetened them with something. Most of the time it's a 0 carb sugar alcohol. Some of those can cause digestive issues. Some of those products are actually sweetened with old school like saccharin, carcinogenic sweeteners that should not be in food anyway, not safe. So either way, you put that, even if it's a 0 carb count, you put that on your tongue. The other end of that nerve is in your brain. Your brain lets the pancreas know there's sweet coming in, and you're going to have an insulin response anyway. So you cannot just switch to foods with keto on the package and think that you're doing yourself a health favor, because you're not. So that's what I say about that. There are healthy ways to be keto, and there are some healthy treats that you can have. It doesn't mean you can never have a sweet treat again, but we have to do a little more research and be sure that we're using natural sweeteners and that we're using them. So stevia or even honey in small amounts will work for some keto stuff. Sometimes you can use just a little bit of natural fruit in a recipe. You can I have a recipe for banana muffins that doesn't have any added sweetener at all. Because the other thing that's going to happen as you go down this path and take the journey, you're going to notice that your palate changes. And that's good and that's important, because you're coming back into alignment with what nature intended. So your body and your instincts are going to be able to tell you more clearly what they want, what they need, and you're going to be opening up a whole new world of health for yourself, but also that relationship, that communication between you and your body. So that is really important, okay? I hope I answered that okay. Are there any follow-up questions to that? I see we've got some folks here, and I just want to make sure if I'm talking about things that spark a question, I get them while you're here. I'm so happy to see everybody. Okay, I'm going to say a couple of last things to wrap up, and feel free to post questions if you still have them. I just want to remind you that if you want to make sure you get here every week or get access to the recording, because obviously this will stay on my page, make sure you follow and like my page. Same time and place next week, Q&A Wednesdays. It's really important, if you want your question to be answered for sure, to submit it in advance. And I'm going to put the, I forget where they put the comments and the links, but you're going to look around and you will see my email, and you can submit your questions in advance to that email, and I'll make sure to cover them in my Wednesday Q&A sessions. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say while you're here. I think that's really it. I really love doing this. I'm just so happy that I have the opportunity to help you think differently about health, to think about health not only as the absence of a disease, but to think about your health really as a beautiful dance between you, your mind, your spirit, whatever that is, and your body. Because what I always say is bodies don't lie. So a lot of us, I'll just leave you with this little anecdote about my own life. A lot of us tend to think that if something's happening with our body that's uncomfortable, that something's wrong with us, okay? And as a celiac, so I don't tolerate gluten grains. I learned this kind of the hard way. You can go check out my blog and read about my Italy story. I have a very dramatic response now to gluten and gluten grains that I didn't used to have in my life. But I'll tell you, what I have now is a very, very clear language, messaging between myself and my body. Bodies don't lie. So, for example, when my body is trying to digest something that is not food for it, like gluten is not food for me. I'm going to guess gluten is not food for at least a third of you. My eject button goes off. It's a very strong and effective eject button. I didn't used to have that, but I used to have chronic headaches, chronic bloating, low energy, brain fog, chronic, just I couldn't get in shape, didn't want to, didn't have the energy. I was not a vibrant person, but I am now. And so I don't see that as something wrong with me. I see that as a very clear message from my body about what works for it and what doesn't. And as long as I'm compliant with that, I live very happily with energy, natural energy, good sleep, hormone balance. So in terms of your body and your health, instead of seeing it as when something is not comfortable, there's something wrong with me that I need to fix, and then go look for a pill for it, even if that pill is a blueberry. I want you to think about, what is my body trying to tell me? What is the message here? What's off? What am I doing or not doing that my body wants me to change? Maybe you need more rest. Maybe you need more protein. Maybe you need more water. Maybe you need more rest. Maybe you need that bike ride or that run at a different heart rate, one that's not causing more stress for you. So what I really invite you to do, beloveds, is to take some time every day to really sit still with yourselves and put your energy, your attention into your body. Thank it for everything that it's doing. Do you have any idea all the invisible, magical, mystical things that are happening at a cellular level right now for you and I to even be having this conversation? It's incredible. You are incredible. You live in a beautiful human body, and I'm just here to make sure that that you find a way to live vibrantly inside of it, because that's what it wants. It wants to thrive, and it has your back, and it's a beautiful adventure. So thank you for being here. Again, I hope to see some of you over in a discovery call. Send me an email if you have questions. I'll be back same time, same place next week. Until then, everybody take good care. Be well. Thank you so much for being here. I love this. Have a great day.